All right, welcome back to the channel. So, Terence Crawford is blatantly ducking Errol Spence, according to many respected fans and commentators. But he favors a Manny Pacquiao fight or a Sean Porter fight over the Errol Spence fight, despite the fact that neither one of these guys actually hold a belt. Let's talk about that in this video. All right, welcome back to the channel. So, Terence Crawford, you know who he is, and you know what we're going to be talking about. Because every single solitary time we talk about Terence Crawford, we have to talk about Errol Spence, because really, that's the fight that everybody in boxing wants to see. The fight that Terence Crawford knows everybody wants to see. Errol Spence knows everybody wants to see. Everybody knows that everybody wants to see that fight. So when Terence Crawford came out and said in an interview, and I heard the interview, I heard the sound in his voice. He says, look, I'm not going to ask for that fight anymore. You're never going to hear me asking for that fight anymore. That sounds like a duck to a lot of people. Now, I understand what he said. He said, I will not ask for that fight anymore. That's not the same thing as saying that you don't want the fight, right? That is a clear distinction that has been made by Terence Crawford supporters that I think is very fair to him, right? However, other people have noted something. They said, well, he's very open to the fight. He's asking for the fight with Manny Pacquiao. And Bob Arum, at least in what he said in this interview, this was going on in this interview, that they're looking for the Sean Porter fight as well. Well, that runs contrary a little bit to what Terence Crawford had been saying about he doesn't want anybody that doesn't have belts. Well, if you're not ducking it, if you want somebody that has belts, the only two people that there are in the welterweight division are Errol Spence Jr. and Yordenis Ugas. Manny Pacquiao no longer holds a belt. So talking about fighting Manny Pacquiao is not about championships. Talking about fighting Manny Pacquiao is about that money. And Manny Pacquiao says that he wants $40 million for his next fight. That kind of sounds like that fight's not going to happen. So Sean Porter also was in a very similar situation to Manny Pacquiao, in that the Sean Porter fight is a situation where Sean Porter would have to fight him as the mandatory or try to get to Terence Crawford via the WBO mandatory position. Well, the problem with that is Sean Porter says, look, man, I'm not fighting for $1 million. Okay? So he's got Sean Porter problems in that they don't have enough money, or at least I'm not going to say they don't have enough money. I just don't know if ESPN is going to foot the bill on that, is going to foot the bill for that fight, right? Or should I say that Bob Arum, whatever budget he has, whatever budget allocation he has, that he is going to cut a large portion of that out to make a fight between Terence Crawford and Sean Porter, when it's obvious that Bob Arum is really not that into, he's just not that into you. You know what I mean? It's like, hey, you know, Terence Crawford and Bob Arum's relationship is like this. Like Terence Crawford is just a really, really beautiful girl that I guess Bob Arum thinks got bad breath, right? It's just, he's just not into you. It's like, yeah, I understand it's all there, but no, thank you. I like redheads. You know what I mean? So he's just, I don't see him doing that. I just don't see him doing that for him, man. You know what I mean? So I don't know, man. But then there's also this alarming consideration, right? Maybe Terence Crawford just doesn't think he's going to win. That is a distinct possibility, man, with Errol Spence. Now, I was at the fight with Danny Garcia and Errol Spence Jr., and I watched Terence Crawford. And if you noticed, Terence Crawford was not dismissive. Well, in person, he was not. He was very locked into that fight. And I don't know how many times he's actually been to Errol Spence Jr. fights and watched him up close, but I don't know, man. I think that, watching this guy, Errol Spence, coming off this car accident, right, where, many people thought he was just completely done, right? Like he was just, yeah, that's it, right? Yeah, that's it. It ain't it for him. He comes back, right, doesn't miss a beat, gets back full swing in training, dominates a very, very solid Danny Garcia, who I do believe is a really good fight for Terence Crawford, right? Dominates Danny Garcia, right? Doesn't knock him out, but he dominates him. Same thing he did with Mikey Garcia. Didn't knock him out, but he dominated him. And he brutalized him, right? Brutalized Danny Garcia. Brutalized Mikey Garcia. Sean Porter's a dog, man. Sean Porter's just like a dog. So I don't even know if you can really look at a fight with Errol, even the fight with, matter of fact, the fight with Errol Spence Jr. and Sean Porter. There ain't no guarantee that Terence is going to actually beat Sean Porter, right? That is a really tough fight, man, for him. I think he dominates Manny Pacquiao. I just think he's going to knock Manny Pacquiao out. He's going to catch Manny Pacquiao. He's going to catch Manny Pacquiao coming in. And that southpaw orthodox switch up that he has, I think that will really cause a lot of problems for Manny Pacquiao. As far as Sean Porter, I don't know, man. I think Sean Porter's just so versatile, so rough, so agile, just well-rounded fighter. And he's kind of that throwback fighter in a lot of ways. Like, if you're not familiar with the channel Scrapbook Boxing, you should definitely go see that channel's Scrapbook Boxing, because you'll learn a lot about old school boxing that that we won't really have access to, because he's an older guy, a very, very respected guy in the boxing world, been around a very, very long time, and when he talks about who the best fighters in the world are, or in all-time fighters are, he always brings up Sam Langford, right? People also bring up a guy named Henry Armstrong, who held 3 belts simultaneously. He has a featherweight champion, the featherweight, lightweight, and welterweight champion all at the same time, right? And if you look at the tape, the tape that's available on these guys, they have a different style, man, where they are, dipping, slipping, getting on the inside and kind of brutalizing people, man, really brutalizing people. That's what Sean Porter looks like to me. And so Sean Porter is that type of guy that can get on the inside, get close to you, brutalize you. Errol Spence went on the inside and went brutal for brutal with a brutal fighter. So, and then he won. So he can outbox you. He can beat you up, right? He can fight you from the inside. He can fight you from mid-range. Also, he can fight you on the outside. So, I don't know, man. It's like, it just doesn't make sense to me that Terence Crawford would not push for this fight. It just doesn't make sense. Or that he would be willing to fight Sean Porter instead. I mean, there's stubbornness, stubbornness has its place, but this is just kind of over the top, man. I can understand, and the reason I wanted to do this video is because I could understand. I listened to BFTB, and BFTB is like, he's just ducking him in plain sight. And I'm like, BFTB ain't wrong about this. He's just not wrong about it. I'm really trying my best to be more supportive of Bud, because, dude, I can only just get on a guy so many times, man, when I like his general character. You know what I mean? But it is what it is, man. Bud's looking like, Bud ain't looking the best in this particular situation. He ain't looked the best in a while, but I'm just hoping that it's not that he is, that he's ducking him. I'm hoping that that's not the case. I'm hoping he's just saying, look, man, I want my money, and I'm going to stand on that until it's time for the fight, right? I'm hoping that's what it is. I'm not hoping it's a scenario where, he just doesn't really think he can beat Errol Spence, and he's going to milk out his contract and even be willing to fight, tougher guys without belts before he goes for Errol Spence. Anyway, that's my thoughts on the matter. You let me know what you think. And with that, I'm out. Peace.